Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're coming to you live from the Return of the Living Dead movie, 1980. Ooh, I did not do my research on that one. 1985. Since I have this green screen, I can technically come live from anywhere. So, these past couple of days, I've been watching the Return of the Living Dead, the first one and the second one. The first one is incredible. The second one was pretty good as well. We have not watched the third one yet, but it does look like there's a lot of Return of the Living Deads. I want to say I saw a Necropolis and maybe like two or three more after that, which is pretty incredible. I mean, talk about running a series, to its fullest. I don't know, extent. So I do like the Return of the Living Dead, 1985. That was a really good movie, and I was really happy at the very end of that movie whenever it was revealed that it was taking place in Louisville, Kentucky, because I'm from Kentucky. So it was nice to hear something local, for a change, because Kentucky doesn't really get the best rep as far as the places to visit, or countryside bourbon, whatever, like Kentucky Wildcats even. But it was nice to hear it in a movie. And my only takeaway from watching the Return of the Living Dead, well, let me give it some backstory first. So it's kind of like a zombie movie, I guess you can say. The dead come to life, and the reason that the dead come to life is because there was a chemical outbreak somewhere that caused, like, a chemical mixture that caused the dead to come to life, right? And so the United States Army in the movie contained the outbreak by taking the dead that had come to life and placing them into little small pods or like capsules and keeping them there so that they wouldn't, come back to life. And in the first movie, it takes place in a like medical supplies store where colleges could order cadavers or I don't know, anything medical supplies related that included dead bodies, to experiment on, dissect, so to speak. Look at the brain. There was a dog that was like cut in half, which, would be perfect for a classroom if they were wanting to learn the anatomy of a dog. Um, and in the movie, they somehow this specific medical supplies store had obtained one of the pods. I think it had maybe like fallen off of one of the US Army's trucks, which is what happened in the start of the second movie. But they had one of these cadavers in their store, and the night manager was training a new guy, and he asks him like, "Hey, do you want to see one of these things?" So he takes him downstairs in the basement, shows it to him. It ends up releasing the toxic gas that brings the dead back to life. And in an effort to right their wrongs, they take the body over across the street to the morgue where there's a what's it called? A crematory? Yeah, crematories. Yeah. To cremate the body basically. So the guy eventually agrees after some back and forth, and they cremate this body that holds these chemicals that bring the dead back to life. And at the exact same time, while the smoke is leaving the morgue, it's getting mixed in with the rain that's also happening at the same time. So the chemicals in the rain just spreads it all across all over Louisville, Kentucky, and yeah, it's the Return of the Living Dead. Fantastic movie. I had a lot of fun with it. There's something special about 80s horror. I'm not a B movie fanatic, so to speak, for the most part, but I do appreciate original ideas when it comes to the horror genre, because horror is like my favorite It's my favorite genre of movie. So I will give the Return of the Living Dead, the first one, a solid 8 out of 10, just due to its originality. What's that guy's name? Orlando Nunez. He was in there also. No, that's not it. Miguel Nunez, Orlando Miguel Nunez, maybe. Miguel Nunez. That's all his name is. Miguel Nunez is in that movie. He's an incredible actor. I wasn't expecting to see, someone that I really love watching in the movie Life, one of the best movies ever with Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence. And he's also in Scooby Doo, Juana Man. Miguel Nunez is hilarious. And a very young Miguel Nunez stars in Return of the Living Dead. So if you've never seen it, I would recommend it. It's not exactly scary. I love horror movies, like I said, and I love scary. This one is more comedic. It's a little light. It's scary elements to a movie, but it's made for fun. Anyways, that was just to kind of explain where we're coming at you live from, the Return of the Living Dead. But let's go ahead and get into my UFC 297 predictions that I made last week. I believe I made that video on Wednesday. And oh my God, what a nightmare of a card it was for my predictions. I only got 2 correct and I missed 10. I don't know how this happens. I've been watching the UFC for a solid 2 years now, maybe even 3 years. I know the fighters, I know the matchups, I understand how all this works out. And this might be the absolute worst card I've ever predicted from beginning to end. So let's go ahead and jump right into it with the first fight. Jimmy Flick submitted Malcolm Gordon. Ah, I for sure thought Malcolm Gordon would get back on track against Flick. Not even close. Flick submitted him. Gordon took the gloves off, hung it up, retired. Salute to Malcolm Gordon. Have a great retirement. Next fight, Jasmine Jasdavicius versus Priscilla Cachoeira. The only fight I got right on the early prelims and prelims. Jasdavicius submitted her in the 3rd round. It was a lopsided fight. I'm honestly surprised that the referee let it go on as long as he did, as Cachoeira just kind of turned into a punching bag. She was wearing a lot of blood. She was getting her ass beat, honestly. So shout out to Jasdavicius, the Canadian female, bringing the dub for Canada, UFC 297. On to the final fight of the early prelims, Johan Lyonese versus Sam Patterson. In my recent video, I said that Lyonese would win this matchup. However, in the first round, Sam Patterson submits him 2 minutes and 3 seconds into the fight. There's nothing left. He's the first male, or no, he's the second male Canadian fighter to lose on the night. So then we fast forward to my personal favorite fight of the night, Polyana Viana versus Jillian Robertson. We love Polyana Viana around here. She looked absolutely like she had no answer for Robertson. Jillian Robertson controlled the ground game. She controlled the takedowns. And when she finally would get Viana on her back, or, just on the ground in general, it was just, hey, bomb after bomb after bomb. Viana had no answer in the second round. And yeah, eventually the referee stopped the fight. Robertson gets the win. 2 Canadian women have a win. No Canadian men have a win. Move on to the next fight. Sergey Side versus Ramon Tavares. I pick Side. Tavares gets the win via decision. Close fight. Some even would go as far as to say that Side was robbed in this fight. I personally wouldn't say that. Tavares put up a hell of a fight. Both of these guys, man, I mean, they deserve a trilogy, honestly. This was their second fight. They fought previously at Dana White's Contender Series, with Side winning the first matchup. Tavares has now won the second. These guys definitely deserve a rematch, and have a trilogy fight to really settle the score. Who's better? They're both 10-2 now. Man, we missed another one. So far, we only have one correct. So going into the C-Day fight, we were. How many fights have happened? One, two, three, four, five. We're 1-4 at this point. Bringing up the next fight on the prelims, Charles Jourdain versus Sean Woodson. I was so excited about this matchup, and it didn't disappoint. These guys both fought their asses off. Jourdain looked great. Woodson looked great, but Woodson looked better. So when Bruce Buffer finally read off the victor of this fight, he said, Sean, the sniper, Woodson. And somehow, I don't know where the confusion came from. Charles Jourdain thought he won the fight, and Woodson was heading back to his corner after congratulating Jourdain on the victory. It wasn't until Daniel Cormier stopped him and said, wait, fellas, Sean Woodson won the fight. I don't know why you think that Jourdain won. And you can even hear Bruce Buffer clear as day saying, Sean Woodson. But whatever, it was probably loud in that arena. So, yeah, Woodson won the fight. I remember in the previous video saying Woodson was a tough SOB. He came out on top against Jourdain. Another loss for me. Now I'm 1-5, and the Canadian men are 0-4. Tough one. Move on to the final fight of the prelims. Brad Katana versus Garrett Armfield at bantamweight. Another close fight. Many also think that Katana should have won the fight, but he wasn't awarded the victory. Garrett Armfield's arm was raised via decision, and that makes the Canadian men 0-5 on the night. What a crazy night for Canada, man. I mean, I remember saying in the last video that they went undefeated on their previous card, and then here they are now, the men 0-5. It's not a good look. It is what it is. And we may not even count C-Day as a Canadian. He trains in Canada. So we don't have to technically count him, which would make them 0-4. On to the main card. Arnold Allen versus Movsar Evloev. What a matchup. This was my favorite matchup on the card. I remember saying I thought it would be an absolute banger. Evloev is undefeated, 18-0. Now, he's 17-0 before the fight. Defeats Arnold Allen via decision. Arnold Allen put up a great fight. Arnold Allen is no slouch. He's one of the better featherweights in the entire UFC. So with Evloev making, I don't want to call it light work, but, kind of dominating the matchup against Allen, I think it puts him in a shot in the top 5. And, it may earn him a shot against somebody like Yair Rodriguez or Brian Ortega, because Max Holloway is going to be fighting Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. Alexander Volkanovski's ready to fight Ilia Topuria in February. Evloev needs an opponent. Yair sounds good. Give up that, top 3 spot. Brian Ortega sounds good. Give up that top 4 spot. But we'll see. Just another prediction that I missed. But Evloev, man, he's got all the tools to really be a serious contender at featherweight. Him versus Topuria or Max or Volkanovski, man, that's the type of company he belongs in. So great fight. Can't wait to see Arnold Allen get back on his feet. Unfortunate loss for him. I really believed that he was going to get that one done, and end all the hype behind Evloev, but that's not what happened. So Arnold Allen, of course, trains out of Canada, so not quite a Canadian fighter, but not a good look for a Canadian-supported fan base. On to the next fight of the main card. Chris Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Curtis wins via decision. It wasn't really that close of a fight. Chris Curtis kind of, it was pretty obvious that he was going to win this fight. But that's just the second fight I've gotten right of the night. Only 2 so far. Friggin' Jasmine Jasdavicius and Chris Curtis. Which means, how many have I missed straight? Arnold Allen. Lionese. Wait, that's not. Yeah. Arnold Allen. Katana lost. Jourdain lost. Cide lost. Viana lost. Lionese lost. I've lost. I've missed 6 in a row. What's going on? You know how you know how people in Instagram comments love to say, "Oh, you're a casual. You're a casual." I feel like a casual right now, and I don't know why. I study this stuff all the time. I love watching the UFC. I tune in every single Saturday. I'm not a casual, but this card has me feeling like I've never seen any of these fights before. I don't know any of the fighters. I don't know what kind of style they have. I just picked some random names. That's not what happened, but after Saturday's outcome at 297, this is where I feel like I'm at. If anyone tailed any of the parlays I made up, then yeah, I'm so sorry. I really thought that it would go this way. But we got Chris Curtis right. So shout out to Chris Curtis getting the easy win via decision over Marc-Andre Barriault. On to the third fight of the main card, Neil Magny versus Mike Malott. We picked Mike Malott originally, and he dominated the fight the first 2 rounds. He looked great. But then we get to the third round. Neil Magny comes back and ends up scoring a knockout victory with only 15 seconds left in the third round. Malott was set to win this fight. Doesn't get it done. Neil Magny bounces back after a devastating loss to Ian Gary in their last matchup. Magny's back in the winner's circle. Mike Malott will not get a top 15 ranking, and we'll probably see Magny fight a pretty decent welterweight next. You know, another he's more of a gatekeeper at this point, but I mean, hey, he got the dub, so shout out to Neil Magny. Another fight that we predicted wrong. And now we move on to the co-main event of the night for the women's bantamweight championship in the UFC. Raquel Pennington, 16-8. Wait, excuse me, 15-9 versus Mara Buena Silva, 10-2-1. Before the fight started, if you picked Raquel Pennington, then you would kind of be thought of as like, what? I mean, Pennington's good, but Buena Silva seemed to be the future, right? That's not how this fight turned out. Buena Silva started strong in the first couple of rounds, and then she tired out. She was absolutely gassed by the time we got to the third, fourth, and fifth round. Raquel Pennington gets the win via decision. Your new women's bantamweight champion, and I'm happy for her. It opens up a new fight with Juliana Pena to defend the belt. Bantamweight, apparently they've got a pretty long-standing beef going on. With Amanda Nunes also hinting at coming out of retirement, I honestly don't expect it to happen, but it could. And if it does happen, I'm taking Nunes to beat either Pennington or Buena Silva any day of the week. But if Nunes comes back, that'll be interesting. If this Pennington victory is what pulls her back out. But yeah, shout out to Raquel Pennington. Buena Silva was absolutely exhausted in that fight. I think she, kind of emptied the tank in the first couple of rounds trying to get it finish via KO, or, she did a lot of takedown attempts too. So, yeah, good on Pennington. I'm looking forward to your next fight, be it, whoever. Could be Nunes, could be Pena. But either way, we know it'll be fireworks. So, great women's fights tonight. Raquel Pennington, Buena Silva was a great fight. On the prelims, Jillian Robertson versus Polyana Viana. Unfortunately, it was kind of lopsided, but great fight nonetheless. Jasmine Dasdavicius versus Priscilla Cachoeira on the early prelims. Lopsided fight, but very entertaining nonetheless. I really thought that Cachoeira would do better in her performance, but anyways, we move on to the main event of the night. The main event of the night. Sean Strickland, middleweight champion versus Dricus du Plessis. Who's going to win? Who's going to be the new UFC middleweight champion? Honestly, when it was all said and done, I picked Sean Strickland to win. I thought he won round one. I thought he won rounds 1, 3, and 5. Um, I'm not a judge, so I don't really get to say who wins the fight. Du Plessis was awarded the belt. Even Dana White, came out and said he thought Sean Strickland won the fight. But we're not the commission. We don't get to vote on the actual results of the fight. Sean Strickland loses his belt. The middleweight championship reign is over for Sean Strickland. It was a lot of fun. He's not a very good look to be a champion as far as the type of things he says, but it is what it is. Du Plessis is now the UFC middleweight champion, and his post fight called out Israel Adesanya. Now, this beef has been brewing for a long time. I remember making a mention of it in the last video I made, that it gets kind of racial between the two of them. But Adesanya did release a video saying, salute to another African champion in the UFC. He acknowledged that Du Plessis is African. He's from South Africa, so he gets to call himself African. And hopefully we can move on in a healthy environment from there. Adesanya versus Du Plessis is a wonderful matchup. Some people online even think that Du Plessis could even win the fight. I personally will go with Adesanya, but we'll talk about that when we get there, because that brings up the next, kind of talk. Will Du Plessis be able to defend the middleweight championship at UFC 300 in April? UFC 300 still needs a main event. We've talked about this on the last two videos, and after the injuries he received against Strickland at 297, I don't see him being ready in time for 300. It looks like he had a broken orbital, which is, you can always tell with the swelling underneath the eye right here. It looked like he had a broken orbital, and to make that turnaround date in just 3 short months to fight, arguably the second best middleweight in UFC history, or the best. I mean, Izzy did beat Anderson Silva. He was outside of his prime, but he did win. That would be a pretty quick turnaround, especially since originally Adesanya called out Du Plessis and he didn't take the fight due to, the injuries he received against Robert Whittaker. So I personally don't expect him to be ready to turn it around by 300 time. And at the same time, Izzy's also talked about being in retirement, or not retirement, excuse me. Izzy's also talked about, taking a break, taking a vacation. He hasn't fought since his loss to Strickland, and I kind of expect him to take more than a year to, kind of get his brain right, kind of get back into that groove of being, what it takes to be a champion. He may have lost that love of the game. When you defend the belt so many times, it probably becomes pretty routine. So, he just needed that spark. And maybe Dreykus is who can spark that back in him. So I wouldn't really see an Izzy come back by 300 time, but soon. And Alex Pereira, also the light heavyweight champion, has mentioned moving back down to middleweight to compete and get double champ status. 2 belts against Du Plessis. However, the way I personally see this going is that Pereira is going to fight Ankalaev first at light heavyweight. He will retain. Izzy will fight Du Plessis next. Izzy may win. If he loses, who knows? But then after that, we'll get Pereira moving back down to 185, potentially, becoming a 2-division champion at this simultaneously. But we just have to wait and see. That's kind of my prediction. And one of the most important things to consider right now is, where does Khamzat Chimaev fit into all of this? I mean, you've got Du Plessis, Strickland, Adesanya, Pereira, um, everybody, but Khamzat Chimaev is an absolute killer in the octagon. And to not give him a title shot seems a bit unfair at this point. I mean, he was ready to compete for the welterweight championship, being ranked as high as number 2 at welterweight after he beat Gilbert Burns. Misses weight against Nate Diaz due to medical reasons, as they explained. Moves up to middleweight. Defeats Kamaru Usman. I mean, what more does he need to do? Some people say he needs more wins in middleweight. Like, okay, who can we feed him to? I mean, Sean Strickland? That seems like a good fight. He can't fight Vittori. Vittori's fighting Brendan Allen. We can take a look at the middleweight rankings. Du Plessis, Adesanya, they're wrapped up. Khamzat Chimaev versus Robert Whittaker. It's not bad. Robert Whittaker turns into a gatekeeper if he loses to Chimaev after losing to Du Plessis. Chimaev versus Cannonier. Not bad. Cannonier ranked number 4. Paulo Costa ranked number 6. I don't really expect to see Chimaev fight Costa. They had a fight originally, and I think Costa pulled out due to a staph infection. Yeah, that's when Kamaru Usman stepped in. I don't see them running that back, but it's possible. They have some personal beef going on as well. I think Chimaev skips that line, and he'll either fight Sean Strickland, Whittaker, or Cannonier next. And then after a win at middleweight, should he win, then he may be eligible for a title shot against Adesanya or Du Plessis, or Alex Pereira could be the middleweight champion by then. Who knows? I love Khamzat Chimaev. I feel like he's getting done so wrong, in the past couple of years. His skill level is beyond where he's being ranked at. He's gonna dog walk the majority of these guys in middleweight, even though the online majority says, oh, well, he needs more wins at middleweight before he's actually good enough for a title shot. Like, all right, whatever. You know what I'm saying? He's going to submit Whittaker. He's going to submit Cannonier. But if that's what you need to feel better about seeing Chimaev compete for the title, then let's do it. But I think Boris deserves the shot, personally. I mean, he would beat Sean Strickland. I don't see Sean Strickland. Well, styles make fights. Chimaev would take Sean Strickland on the ground. And yeah, Strickland can wrestle, but Chimaev is probably going to submit him. We just have to wait and see. It's fun to kind of talk about what's next for these guys. And that's kind of where I see Chimaev fitting in at. Looks like we're kind of nearing the 29-minute mark, which is a little higher than I kind of expected this to go. But that's all we got to say about UFC 297. I did absolutely horrible. 2 right, 10 wrong. We move on to the next one. And the next UFC card won't be until February the 3rd. So we're going to be taking next weekend off. By we, I mean the UFC. I will probably still do another monologue, but there won't be any UFC cards to discuss. I may discuss future matchups, especially the card coming up on February the 3rd, but I won't go too in depth on that one. It's still pretty far ways off. So we can also go ahead and mention that the WWE Royal Rumble is coming up. Who's coming back? Mickie James, Ronda Rousey, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Who knows? That's what makes the Royal Rumble fun, is that it's full of returns that no one's expecting, So for the women's Royal Rumble, the only confirmed entrances so far have been Bayley, Nia Jax, Becky Lynch, and Bianca Belair. And for the men's, Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre. So not a lot have been confirmed out of a 30-person Royal Rumble. which leaves the door open to so many possibilities. Um, when it comes to the men, a lot of people online believe that CM Punk will be the one who wins the Royal Rumble. I don't know who he's going to challenge, because if he challenges Seth Rollins for the belt, then Damian Priest is just going to cash in the belt on that fight at WrestleMania. So CM Punk would have to challenge Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and that's not going to happen as far as victories. CM Punk is not going to defeat what Roman Reigns has built up this entire time. I mean, we've spent years building up the bloodline, building up Roman Reigns, building up the Usos, building up Solo Sikoa. We're not going to let that end by the guy who sued the company, retired from wrestling, joined AEW, threw shots at WWE while working for AEW, got in backstage altercations at AEW, which ultimately led to him being fired by the company. WWE signed him because he's a cash grab. That's not going to be the guy who's going to defeat Roman Reigns. So I'm not even entertaining that as a possibility. When I think about if CM Punk were to win the Royal Rumble, it would be to go after the WWE Championship, which Seth Rollins has. That's kind of a fun fight. They have good beef. But like I said, Damian Priest has the money in the bank. He's going to cash in no matter what. So it's not really that exciting for me personally as a WWE fan. Roman Reigns is going to squash CM Punk, and Damian Priest will just cash in the money in the bank, which I suppose is hype, but it seems pretty predictable. Now, the fan in me personally doesn't think that CM Punk is going to win the Royal Rumble. I think that after his comeback, when Jinder Mahal was supposed to be coming back, and they announced that a former WWE champion was returning, many people thought it was going to be Jinder Mahal, and it was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I personally think that The Rock will win the 30-man Royal Rumble at WWE this Saturday. What is that? January what? The 27th? Yeah, January 27th. So that's this upcoming Saturday. Book The Rock to win. He'd probably come out of like number 30. Who knows? Only 5 people have been confirmed in the men's. That leaves the door open for 25 other entrants. The Rock will show up. I think he'll come back. I think he'll win. And I think he'll challenge Roman Reigns for the head of the table. You know, he wants his championship. We'll get that done at WrestleMania. Who knows what, 30? No, they're in the 40s by now, I believe. Yeah, WrestleMania 40. Other fights on the card. Fatal 4-Way. Roman Reigns defending his belt against Randy Orton, AJ Styles, and LA Knight. He's not losing it against these guys. Randy Orton's comeback was pretty impressive, but AJ Styles and LA Knight, what do any of these guys have going for them that they deserve to end Roman Reigns' run as the WWE Heavyweight Champion? It's Universal Championship. It's just not going to happen. Then we move on to the United States Championship. Logan Paul has that belt versus Kevin Owens. Not really sure who's going to win that one. We'll wait and see when we watch it. Logan Paul will likely defend it. And I think those are the only fights that have been announced so far. Yeah. Women's Royal Rumble confirmed. Somebody's going to come after Rhea Ripley. Probably will be Charlotte. She'll probably show up at the Royal Rumble, win it all, and then call out Rhea Ripley for her WWE Women's Championship. Charlotte seems to always kind of, return to the WWE around their major pay-per-view times and stuff. So we're not gonna hate on Charlotte. You know, she is what she is. She's pretty good. So shout out to her. Looking forward to WWE Saturday Royal Rumble. And yeah, hopefully The Rock comes back and our predictions are correct. CM Punk not winning, Dwayne The Rock Johnson winning. Moving on from wrestling, Kentucky Wildcats big man Zvonimir Ivisic was recently made eligible for the Wildcats, and he played on Saturday, January 20th against Georgia. He had 13 points. And at one time he was like 4 for 4 from 3-pointer or something in his debut. I mean, this man was absolutely hooping. You know, the Wildcats beat Georgia 105-96, but Zvonimir Ivisic was the talk of the night. I mean, we finally have another big man to pair with Aaron Bradshaw, and you've got all these guards, Rob Dillingham, DJ Wagner, and these wing players, Reed Shepard, Antonio Reeves goes back and forth between wing and guard, Justin Edwards. Kentucky has the absolute full package to win the national championship now. I mean, there's nothing stopping them. This team, they have the talent, that's for sure. So I'm going on the record and saying, hot take, Kentucky Wildcats are going to win the 2024 national championship. They've got the best roster now that they've got Big Z, and who's going to stop them? We'll just have to wait and see. March Madness is always an interesting time. And, you know, speaking of the Kentucky Wildcats, I usually tend to talk about my homer teams at the start of the episode, whereas today I kind of saved them for the back end of the show. And there's one more thing that happened this week that I'm happy to share with you. And let me go ahead and get into uniform real fast. Where did it go? Wow. That's right. You see it. Indiana Pacers, baby. Indiana Pacers acquired Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors for a not exactly a lopsided trade, but you know, we don't. Let me go ahead and go over the trade first. The Pacers acquired Pascal Siakam for Bruce Brown. Well, this is what the Pacers gave up because it was a 3-team trade. The Pacers gave up Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks. Now, those 3 first-round picks, that's not exactly very appealing when you think about it. You know, like, oh man, we're giving up a lot for this guy whose contract ends at the end of the season. But when you think about the current Pacers, you got Tyrese Halliburton, you got Benedict Mathurin, you've got Miles Turner, you've got Aaron Nesmith, who's a former lottery pick. Now you've got Pascal Siakam, you got Buddy Hield. Do you need these first round picks? You know, we're building a team around Tyrese Halliburton and everybody I just mentioned. We don't need to look forward to these draft picks. We're more so finding role players to fit these certain roles so that way we can get this team to the playoffs, hopefully get this team to the championship. And I think that the Pascal Siakam trade was a tremendous one. Never really been a big Raptors fan over the years. Siakam has kind of held the title as being the second best power forward in the Eastern Conference, but behind Giannis Antetokounmpo. So this was a tremendous trade for the Pacers, if you ask me. You know, we already have what looks to be the number one offense in the NBA. I mean, the Pacers can score. Tyrese Halliburton can dish. Like, they're tremendous. So we add Siakam, and he's going to help space the floor out even more. That adds another power forward who can knock down the 3, rebound, get assists, just get involved in the offense. And I don't know if I want to say Pacers 2024 NBA champions, We do have the Milwaukee Bucks' number. The Pacers are 4-1 against the Bucks in the regular season, so they're not really that scary. But when you think about the Boston Celtics, I don't know if we're ready to beat them yet. We'll wait and see when it comes playoff time. But yeah, A plus to the Pacers on their trade this week. Pascal Siakam, cannot wait to continue to see where the season goes. Tremendous upgrade at the power forward position, and yeah, A plus from me. In my last, not in my last video, in my last monologue, I mentioned that I was going to be streaming sometime soon. Hopefully, that would be taking off sooner than later. Um, we do have a game in mind, but we have not fully acquired all the equipment, so hopefully that comes in later this week. But I mentioned that I was a major Yakuza fan. I listed off all the Yakuza games that I beat, and the ones that I haven't beat being Yakuza 2 and Yakuza 8 like a Dragon, which is called The Man with No Name or He with No Name, something like that. But, anyways, the game that I've chosen to stream first will be Yakuza Dead Souls on PlayStation 3. Where did that come from? Out of nowhere. Yakuza Dead Souls is a spinoff where zombies have invaded Kamurocho. I'm assuming I haven't actually booted it up. I just kind of, well, I booted it up, but I haven't actually played the game yet. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that. Be on the lookout for me finally getting into my streaming bag. This is a lot of fun. I love putting all my resources together, talking to you guys, sharing with you what's on my mind, my UFC predictions, my love for the Indiana Pacers, the Kentucky Wildcats look tremendous. So, yeah, just continue to tune in with everything I have to talk about. I really appreciate every single one of you who take the time to watch my monologues. And as always, I will see you on the next one. Salute.